So to finish off our lectures in computer visualization, I thought it would be just interesting to kind of introduce this idea of artificial intelligence. Because we're the technology component of the education, I thought it was important to kind of like introduce us to this kind of connection between what's happening in the technology of artificial intelligence and now coming into architecture. So let's first start off with, you're going to see a lot of really, I guess, startling or interesting things today about what artificial intelligence can do in architecture. And I kind of want to prepare you for kind of like the way these typically new technologies play out in human experience. So this is kind of a disclaimer to start off with. Many times we're introduced with a new piece of technology that we're unfamiliar with, and people get very excited with it. And so this chart is just a typical way that people, societies, humanity in general deal with the idea of an introduction of a technology. So there's this idea of a trigger, an original seeing of that idea of technology, and then this kind of contagion of excitement with it. And then we have this peak of inflated expectation. And we're actually maybe getting close now with AI at the kind of peak of expectation. And so you might think that would just continue off in continuous excitement, but then there becomes this idea that we evaluate these tools, we find out they're not satisfying our needs, or they're disappointing us in other ways, and we have this trough of disillusionment, and people get less excited about it. But nonetheless, the technology is how can I say it, disruptive enough and exciting enough that eventually people start to figure out uses for it, ways that they can engage with it. And there is this idea of the slope of enlightenment. And if you look at the chart below that, the concept of this idea of kind of early adopters, then early major adopters of it, where it becomes at that peak, kind of like the common leaders in the industries, or those more advanced players are all familiar with it and adopting this technology and using it. And then you have people that come along late, skeptics, so to speak. And then you have finally where the adoption rate really falls off or is no longer needed to be there. The laggards, the people who totally reject the idea of the new technology that's coming. And I hope we'll just be comfortable in the idea that while things will look startling, we will come through a period of a realization with it and then a fit into our cycles. And I'll try to explain a little bit more of that going forward. Now let's take a look at, let me get my slide here, just a couple of terms when we talk about artificial intelligence. Before that, there's a concept of machine learning. Machine learning is just to kind of, I guess, to simplify it, it's the precursor to artificial intelligence in computer systems. Machine learning builds algorithms to build models based on data sets. So I'll show you how you can change the shape of a room, and through machine learning, the system will automatically populate that with furniture, and I've shown you some of those illustrations in the previous lecture. And then we move into actually another level of this kind of machine learning, and that's deep learning. And this becomes really quite a complex concept. But the idea is that machines can actually take huge amounts of data sets, make important analysis of it, and then have them at their ready, so to speak, to continue to do tasks that we might assign to them. So I'm sure that even in my late terms, I'm kind of screwing this up a little bit with how I'm probably describing it to you, but it's important to note this kind of terminology. So we're going from machine learning to deep learning, and then we're moving on to even more complex concepts about diffusion models. And this is where the data sets now are really extremely complex and large. And the way we're analyzing the data from them are at another level of statistical significance. And we have multi-dimensional criteria. In a way, we have, we're searching billions of images with millions of different criteria. And so these models become very complex. And this is when we start to approach that kind of discussion about artificial intelligence. But before we get there, let's start to look at the kind of technology and machine learning that comes just from the first passes at this idea of what machine learning is.